Okay, so this poem is called A Break from the Bush, and it's by Yusuf Komunyakaa. And it was, like, when I first looked at the title, you could get the idea that a break is just, like, time away from something for a little while that you're going to have to go back to. But then, from the bush, I wasn't really sure what the bush is kind of referring to, if it was a place, like a specific symbol or what it was. But then, as you read the poem, it starts with like an allusion to the South China Sea, which was a big aspect in the Vietnam War. And so that kind of introduces the subject right away. And basically it's like a narrative kind of poem where it's talking about how the sea drives in another herd, but it's just kind of a group of soldiers are being taken to the shore or the beach to have one of those weekends like where they got a break from the war, which actually happened in the Vietnam War. The soldiers were kind of just like dropped off to have kind of a time away from the war for a few days, and they were just kind of taken back right into the action. And so the whole poem kind of is just like telling a story, explaining all the things they're doing to like have fun, and then he talks about how they're pretending to be somewhere else, so they're trying to escape reality. And then as it gets towards the end, he kind of brings you back into reality and connects it back to the war by saying that one of the guys who is chasing after the volleyball into the water is going to trip a fragmentation mine 3 days later and lose his life. So it seems like it's all fun and games, and they're like pretending to be away from it, but you can't like get away from the reality of the war.
And the poet uses a lot of it refers to a lot of personal experiences. Like he uses specific names, like he says Frenchie, Snake, Lee Otis, and with one of the names he mentions the age, and he says that he's 17, and he does this because he wants to show that they're young and carefree, and that even though they're in war, they're able to have that kind of relaxed mindset.
And there's definitely some irony in here when it's talking about, so it introduces and it says the volleyball's a punching bag, which kind of could be a metaphor, like they're taking their anger, their frustration, everything out on the volleyball. They're hitting it so hard while they're playing around. And then it goes on and says that Clem's already lost a tooth and Johnny's left eye is swollen shut. So you would think that those wounds would kind of come from the war. I mean, they're fighting in a war, but they're getting injured, like playing volleyball on the beach, and when they're like having a good time, but they're still enjoying doing it because it's not the war. And then like the author also uses adjectives with negative connotation that still like relate it back to the war, so you know, because they're like having a grill out here on the beach, but it says frozen airlifted steaks burn on a wire grill, so you know that they're being provided to them by the people, like by the planes that are bringing in supplies and bringing in food for them. And then it says right after that, and miles away machine guns can be heard. So even when they're there trying to get away from it all, like they can still hear the shots just a few miles away from them. And it really is the biggest part of the poem. The big fulcrum there is at the very end when it talks about, it introduces CJ, and it says CJ who in 3 days will trip a fragmentation mine. It runs after the ball into the Whitecaps. So by using that noun dependent clause that as in a positive there, it kind of describes him more, because before you're just talking about all the different guys and everything they're doing. They're playing volleyball. This guy's burying himself in the sand, like he's listening to Jimi Hendrix, and then this guy introduces him and says that 3 days later he'll trip a fragmentation mine. So it uses like situational irony, because the people in the poem don't know what's going to happen, but the reader knows that a few days later he's not going to be alive anymore.
Yeah, and the fulcrum at the end is kind of a reminder that you can try to enjoy yourself, but you can't really avoid the inevitable. Like, he has like that nice time to himself with his friends, but when it comes down to it, war is still like a terrible thing.